Just Baseball show is live. Thank you all so much for joining us wherever you may be getting this podcast, on audio, on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, on video, on YouTube or on X, or of course with our friends at SportsGrid. Jack McMullen, Aram Leighton here with you. Peyton Genis, like he always is. We have a whole bunch to talk about on the Just Baseball show. We're going to hit on American League and National League Player of the Month, our picks before those actually come out. We're also going to talk about the NL Pitcher of the Month race because it's kind of choose your flavor between Christopher Sanchez and Jacob Misiorowski. Edwin Arroyo makes his major league debut for the Cincinnati Reds, but it comes at a cost. Ellie De La Cruz out maybe a month with a hamstring issue. And, of course, we're going to talk about NCAA baseball's regional weekend being in the books as we get you ready for Super Regional Weekend. All of that, of course, is presented by BetMGM. The show, as always, presented by BetMGM. A reminder to make it legendary, as always. Before we get into college baseball, I want to take you into college football, into that world. I'm not sure if you saw this update a couple hours ago on Tuesday morning, but former first-round pick of the Angels, Aram Leighton, Jordan Adams, has officially retired, and he will be playing wide receiver at SMU. So he's going to go play for Rhett Lashley at SMU. Very similar to the Monte Harrison, Arkansas thing, but Jordan Adams, big leaguer, played in 38 major league games, is going to go play college football. Your knee-jerk reaction to that?
I didn't see that yet. That is awesome. I know that we've called this on the show before. That, like, obviously I wish that Jordan Adams would have a long and successful major league career, but I know that you and I have talked about it, that if it didn't work out, he was going to go back to college football, because I don't know if people remember this, but he was not only one of the best like receiver recruits in college or in high school football. He was, I think, ranked at the time. I know high school rankings only matter so much. I'm pretty sure he was ranked either ahead of or right next to Jamar Chase, if I have that correctly. I'm going to pull it back up. I know I have a tweet on this from back in the day. He was nasty, Jordan Adams, at football. And I know he's older now, but he's just going to be a grown man among boys with, I think, still probably the same route tree he had. This could be awesome.
He was a 4-star. I believe he was going to North Carolina to play both football and baseball. But yeah, if I'm not mistaken, he was right there with Jamar Chase in terms of like the rivals.com or the 24/7 wide receiver ranking. So
I have it right here. He was below Amon-Ra St. Brown and above Jamar Chase. 5-star by some outlets, depending where you look.
How about that? All right, so Jordan Adams, again, he's going to go play college football at SMU. Congratulations to Jordan Adams on tying a bow on his Major League Baseball career and on his baseball career and heading to a new venture in college football. But I don't want to waste any more time. Yeah, Jordan Adams, about this. Amon-Ra St. Brown, the number 2 wideout prospect in America. Jordan Adams, the number 3. Jamar Chase, the number 4 and 15th overall. Jordan Adams was legit. He was the 14th best player in America. Jordan Adams was in college football. Again, he was going to go play football and baseball at North Carolina. Do want to take you to college baseball now because regional weekend is in the books. We head to super regionals. You want to talk about the Johnnies, of course. UCLA out on regional weekend. Rock Chalowski's college career is over. This is your blank canvas. You take me wherever you want to go on college baseball's regional weekend.
So that's the biggest one. And I know UCLA was able to just narrowly avoid just almost a clean sweep, getting bounced with back-to-back homers, in the 9th to tie it and then walk it off to earn themselves one more game and then losing in that next game as well. I think it has to be one of the most disappointing, I would say, seasons from a team in a long time that I can remember, where you have a team that I think was everyone's pick. And at least if they weren't your pick, they were an obvious, irrefutable top 3 pick to go back and not only get to the College World Series, but win it. And they don't even get out of the regional. Pretty shocking from UCLA. And I think Rock Chalowski had a couple opportunities with runners on, just couldn't come through, and just seemed like the moment just kind of got to them a little bit, which is crazy because it was a team that seemed so comfortable in the moment last year in the College World Series with a lot of the same players. That was the one big takeaway for me. The other major takeaway that I had was you have 2 key players in key spots here getting tossed for celebrations on homers. Now, I go both ways with this because one was Landon Harrison for Arizona State, who was the best player in college baseball this year. I think if you look at a lot of statistics, pretty much anything offensively, I mean, it was one of the best seasons, if not the best we've seen, especially in the BB Core era. He flips his bat up in the air after striking out and he gets tossed. Arizona State wins that game. They needed to win the next one. They end up losing by 1 run in extras. I imagine Landon Harrison could have been the difference there. And then you had a player by the name of Phelps for NC State, I think Trey Phelps, that ends up getting ejected as well after hitting a home run. And again, big player, big spot there, ends up getting tossed. I don't know how to feel about it because both instances, like, I can hear both sides. Ultimately, I'm very anti-tossing a player in a situation like that. But also, like, don't these players know that they are liable to be tossed? And in such a big situation, I know you want to get, like, you can't control the emotions. You're feeling really excited, but I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it. I kind of want to just tee it up because I think the obvious answer is, oh, the ump show, like, don't toss these guys. And I agree with that. However, like, both were kind of at a spot where it was like, you're really pushing it and you're kind of forcing an umpire in college baseball to do something. Because if they don't, they end up hearing about it a little bit from the NCAA as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to understand what you are doing, and there is no invincibility in the regionals or in the super regionals or even in Omaha. And we saw this a couple of years ago with Drew Gilbert, right? Tennessee had one of the best college baseball teams that we've ever seen, and Drew Gilbert, a first-round pick on that team, was tossed for arguing a called strike 3, and Tennessee ends up losing in the supers to Notre Dame. Like, it was a spot where you cannot get tossed if you're one of the best players on the best team in America. And, like, I don't know. I guess we're just running into that issue a couple more times in college baseball where it's this hybrid of guys thinking that they could be invincible because it's such an emotionally charged weekend, regional weekend, but it's also like umpires have a job to do. Now, are they pushing it into sometimes umpires overstep? Yeah, absolutely. But at the end of the day, like, there's two sides to this coin at all times. So I don't know. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say this is an indictment on the kids or this is an indictment on the fabric of umpiring in college baseball. Like, why can't it just be both?
100%. And it was Trey Phelps is from Georgia, wrong red team for me there. I apologize on that front. And Phelps, it was a huge homer. And I think kind of looking over towards the Liberty dugout, I've seen a lot of people saying, and there were fans and I think his family above the dugout, that he was maybe celebrating with them. But at the same time, like, guys, in the field for Liberty were like throwing their hands up, like, what the heck, man, at Phelps. And you kind of doubling down against them. I don't think players should get tossed in this spot because in the major leagues, you're not getting tossed. And these are, high stakes games and in the NIL era. Like, I think it is interesting to potentially toss these guys, but I don't know what my position is at the end of the day now, because I just feel like this can't be happening. We can't be having guys get tossed when the stakes are this high and the games are this good. But at the same time, like, there is this kind of gray area where it continues to happen. Sometimes players get away with it. And I think in the last couple instances that we saw here, like, both players kind of pushed it too far to the point where the umpire kind of had to do something. How do you police this though? Like, did you just not police it at all? I would be fine with that. I don't really care. But at the same time, like, it's been something in college baseball for a while now in terms of there has to be some sort of line drawn that clearly is just the rules for NCAA. I mean, even the NFL has no taunting rules. I think the biggest issue is you shouldn't be suspended for the next game. You can get tossed for that game. Maybe don't suspend them for the next game. That's the biggest issue. And that's what affected Harrison and Arizona State. And that's what, I think could affect, Phelps a little bit too in Georgia.
And that's probably the fix. But again, it is such an emotionally charged weekend, a college baseball regional weekend, and it is officially in the books. We have our regional winners, and the super regional fields are set. In Morgantown, it's going to be Cal Poly and West Virginia. In Troy, Alabama, I believe Troy is in Alabama. It's Little Rock and Troy. Chapel Hill is going to be North Carolina and USC. Auburn is going to be Auburn and Ole Miss. And then in Lawrence, it'll be Kansas and Oklahoma. Shout out Lawrence, Kansas for hosting a super regional. Tuscaloosa going to host one. Alabama and St. John's. Oregon heads to Texas to take them on in Austin. And then in Athens, it'll be Georgia and Mississippi State. So it is a loaded super regional field. But again, Rock Chalowski out of the tournament, top seed to UCLA out of the tournament. We got about 30 seconds left in this segment. Rock Chalowski ties a bow on the best college career since blank for you.
It's funny that it's kind of Dylan Cruz-ish at the same time. I don't always want to go too far back there, but I think when you look at the sum of the parts, it might be, you might be able to go a little bit further than that. But I think people sleep on how good Cruz was.
Yeah, people really do sleep on how good Dylan Cruz was. But I don't know. I was thinking like maybe Adley Rutschman, but Dylan Cruz is probably the right answer. This guy was SEC Player of the Year. I believe he was the Golden Spikes Award winner, one of the best college players that we have seen in recent memory. Back to the big leagues and Cincinnati in a moment. Stay locked right here on the Just Baseball Show.
The talk has been about sports betting handle being down or flat, right, because of the threat of prediction markets and the growth of them. But we've seen Kalshi actually kind of plateau for the first time in recent memory. Looking at a graphic right now, we've had the spike for the Super Bowl, and then this is usually when things die down. Yes, there's March Madness, but usually sports betting handle kind of goes down over the course of spring and summer until we get back to football season.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
For Abdul Carter. Hey, son, you want to be a leader? Show up to meetings on time. Don't be late to practice. This guy's sitting there trying to tell me that he's got a problem with Jackson Dart going to a Trump rally when he can't even show up to a meeting on time and he can't show up to practice and he's late? Dude.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
This is all about headlines, Donnie. If we hear, if that noise gets louder as we get closer, then 45 cents is going to be 65 cents, and that's the repricing we're talking about. I don't need Utah to get them. I need people to think Utah is going to go up and get them, Donnie, and that's how you make money.
Prediction Markets Edge, only on SportsGrid.
Now we have to endure months of manufactured rumors about will he or won't he retire LeBron James. They are probably, Donnie, working on the Decision 2.0 for Amazon Prime as we speak. Is Jim Gray still around? But here is the beauty of the predictive markets. They make insufferable stories about insufferable people highly profitable.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Just Baseball Show continues. We just talked about college baseball and the regionals heading into Super Regional weekend. And now we want to talk about Elly De La Cruz and Edwin Arroyo. Good news and bad news. The bad news is Elly De La Cruz is on the shelf for 2 to 4 weeks with a hamstring issue. The good news is Edwin Arroyo, one of the top prospects in the Reds organization, is on his way to the major leagues. Arroyo is one of the best performers in all of minor league baseball so far this year. We'll start with the Arroyo front. We'll wrap the segment on the Elly front. But Edwin Arroyo in 53 games with AAA Louisville this year, a 945 OPS. He hit 323 with 11 homers, 34 driven in, and he was 9 for 9 in the stolen base department. This is the best that Edwin Arroyo has probably ever looked in the minor leagues. And this was a big piece of that Luis Castillo trade return.
100%. And, he in the early going, right after that trade at the lower levels, Arroyo was clearly a top 100 prospect because the defense was so good, a switch hitter that it could air pull. So I think you would see him kind of outslug those exit velocities. And then Arroyo, I think the shoulder injury that wiped out his 2024 season played a big part in that. And he just couldn't quite find the swing to the degree that he had it at certain points in the lower levels to be able to generate that loft and produce a little bit more power than we've seen in the past. But also the mechanics, the setup kind of got a little bit funky. And I dove into that and on Twitter, and we talked about it a little bit more on the call up in the past. But he used to be super bowed out and like heavy on the front side with his leg, like very unusual stance. And as a result, I think it was very difficult for him to control his weight. He's a lot more vertical, kind of standing out, letting himself be an athlete in the box now. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the quality of contact is up, the contact rates are up, and the batted ball angles are better as well. And so all of a sudden now you have a guy that he's never going to hit 30 homers, I don't think. But when you have the good bat to ball, and now you can pair that with significantly improved batted ball angles and batting, and exit velocities that are closer to average, now you can start to dream on the sum of his parts being an above average regular. And remember, Arroyo is a fantastic defender, not only at shortstop, but all over the infield. So I know we have it right now on for those that are watching on video, like he was completely like open and his front knee like bowed out forward. I don't know how he hit like that. Like the weight, usually you think about guys being like 60-40 towards the back leg, sometimes even more 70-30 towards the back leg. I've never really seen like 70-30 towards the front leg in a setup. And I imagine that had to be really difficult for Arroyo to control. I don't know how he got there, but I'm glad he got away from there. And I think as a result, we're seeing a much, much better Arroyo offensively, where, you look at what he's been able to do. His career high is 14 homers. He had 11 in 53 games before the call-up at AAA. So obviously there's a little bit more thump there.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, a lot more pop in Edwin Arroyo's bat right now, and it makes a lot of sense when you're taking away like this sway, but you're also eliminating so much momentum that you can actually gather from that back leg, which is fascinating. Edwin Arroyo, also a guy that, if I'm not mistaken, can still play a high level of defensive shortstop, right? That should be kind of a net neutral at shortstop for them.
100%. I think he can be a really solid defender there. I think I have him as above average. He's going to be a big riser onto our top 100 list, and then also, moving up it pretty high there. That in this update that's coming out this week. But what I think makes Arroyo the perfect fit for this team, and why he should have probably been called up before an Elly De La Cruz injury, is that I know a lot of shortstops, you look at them and say, okay, those guys can play second base and third base as well. Sure. But not all of them are super comfortable maneuvering from those positions and going back and forth. Arroyo is super comfortable at second base, super comfortable at third base, to where I think he'd be grading out as potentially plus at those spots as well. And when you look at the Reds and their larger roster situation, those are two spots that they're not getting production from. And I understand that they don't want to fully, just call it on Ke'Bryan Hayes, who I know is like getting a little bit of an IL stint here. And we'll see if that's more of a phantom thing or what that is with the back that they alluded to. And then I know McLean has just struggled as well. You can plug into both of those spots and cut into those guys' reps maybe 2 to 3 times a week each without fully kicking them from the lineup. And all of a sudden, you've got Arroyo playing, 4 times a week when Elly De La Cruz comes back. But for now, looks like he's going to be getting some pretty consistent run. And again, I think he's going to be able to play it at a high level.
Pivoting the conversation to the Elly De La Cruz side of things, again, he hits the 10-day IL with a hamstring strain. Elly was legging out a double. It seemed normal, and then all of a sudden the hamstring kind of goes on him. It's really unfortunate for the Cincinnati Reds. And the Reds have been probably the most frustrating team in a very not frustrating National League Central. Pretty much every fan base in the NL Central should be very happy with what their teams have given them so far this year. The Cubs, with that 10-game losing streak, I understand how you could be frustrated in the injury bug that has, gotten to the Cubs rotation. But there are points where that Reds offense looks like a bottom 5 offense in Major League Baseball. I mean, they have been buoyed by pitching even without Hunter Green, and they're sitting over 500. But at points, I'm sure the vibe did not feel like they were a team north of 500 and in the best division in baseball, firmly inside of it. Elly De La Cruz, that omission for the next month, this can turn into a slip and slide fast for them if they don't kind of step up offensively as a unit.
100%. I mean, thank goodness for JJ Bleday. I mean, that's the craziest part is they got JJ Bleday, but performing as maybe the best hitter in the entire league for a month, and they're still kind of scraping it together there. And Arroyo is a great guy to be able to fill in and hold it down from the bat to ball, maybe sneak out a little bit more slug than you expect, give you some value on the base paths and play good defense. But the deficit of losing an Elly De La Cruz here is huge. And that's why I think when they do get Elly back, if Arroyo's looking half decent, they really got to start focusing on putting him into a position to play more, because I think you can only be so patient with the lack of production you're getting from McLean, and then what you weren't really getting from Ke'Bryan Hayes as well. So it's a big blow for them. They're going to need to pitch, and even of late, when you look at some of the arms that they've been rolling out there, like Lodolo is still trying to find his footing. Brady Singer has been brutal. They're giving Chris Paddock starts. Like the Reds are in a really interesting flex point right now. And I mean, Hunter Green can't come back soon enough, but again, it always still goes back to the offensive side of things. And I don't know how it gets much better unless Gino has one of his crazy stretches. Bleday keeps this up, and then you get Elly back, on schedule and when you're expecting.
Yeah, JJ Bleday in the month of May hit over 300 with an OPS over 1,000. He had 8 homers and a 176 WRC plus. JJ Bleday did. Again, every team in the National League Central, as we sit here and chat on Tuesday, June 2nd, is over 500. The Reds are in, quote-unquote, last place at 30-29. We got about a minute left here in this segment. Do you think by the end of the year, Cincinnati finishes last in the NL Central based on the concerns that we just, arose, or does St. Louis have a slip in them, or does Pittsburgh have a slip in them?
I could see St. Louis having a slip in them, and I know we've talked about that. But at the same time, man, like it just doesn't look great right now between the back end of this bullpen for the Reds, the way things are slowing down a little bit. Again, I just don't know how I can talk myself into this offense picking it up. I mean, you have Nathaniel Lowe and JJ Bleday with a 140 and 183 WRC plus respectively, and they're still fighting this hard for offense. So I could see them finishing in last.
We'll see what happens here, man. But again, all 5 teams in the NL Central north of 500. We will talk NL Pitcher of the Month. What a race that is next. Just Baseball Show, as always, is presented by BetMGM and Aram Leighton. Choose your fighter. Christopher Sanchez just finished up a scoreless month. Christopher Sanchez in the month of May did not allow an earned run. It was 5 starts, 39 innings, 45 punch-outs to 3 walks. Move over Grover Cleveland Alexander because Christopher Sanchez is getting the ball, looking to push to the likes of Oral Hershiser. He has the longest scoreless stretch consecutively in Phillies franchise history. Oral Hershiser, I believe, sits at 59 innings, and Sanchez is just under 45 consecutive scoreless innings. Meanwhile, Jacob Mizorowski did allow an earned run, but it's a 0.23 ERA in 6 May starts. This guy struck out more guys. The FIP is lower, the fielding independent pitching, but Jacob Mizorowski was a strikeout machine. Now, Sanchez was an innings-eating and sterling scoreless machine. So I ask you simply, who's your National League Pitcher of the Month in the month of May?
Oh, man. It's so tough. It's so tough. And this is one where, like, especially, there's a really good instance of, like, not being able to go to, like, the wins. Like, I know, and we don't really value that ultimately when it comes to these guys. But, like, when you're trying to split hairs here, like, Mizorowski lost a game where I think he allowed the 1 run, and he was utterly dominant. It's a really tough one this month. And we were kind of debating it in the social chat of, like, who do we give the nod to? I do, even looking at the innings output, like, you'd think maybe Sanchez could separate a little bit more. He it was only 2/3 of an inning more. At the end of the day, though, if you don't give up a run for the month, I think it's got to go to that guy. I know Mizorowski only gave up 1, but Sanchez gave up 0.
The other one is Mizorowski made 1 more start than Sanchez. So Sanchez was going far deeper into outings than Mizorowski was.
I would say that's why. So you get 2 more outs in 1 less outing. I mean, Christopher Sanchez is the most impressive starter in terms of length at this point that we've seen. I mean, he's averaging nearly 7 innings per start. It's outrageous. Also, the strikeout to walk rate, which Mizorowski's already off the charts too, but to walk less than 1 batter per 9 in a month, it was 0.69 batters per 9 this month for Christopher Sanchez. I mean, the guy is not going to beat himself, and then it's impossible to beat him as well. And I know Mizorowski's been, on the same wavelength right now, but to make 1 extra start and still not allow a run, I think it's got to be Christopher Sanchez. And Jacob Mizorowski may have the best month ever to not win pitcher of the month. That's total just pulling that out of my you-know-what. But like, I can't fathom a much better month where you strike out 57, walk 6, opponents have a 271 OPS against you, and you somehow don't win pitcher of the month in 6 starts. But I think I got to go with the guy that went, to your point, 2/3 of an inning more in 1 less start, and I mean, didn't allow a run.
It's the 271 OPS against for Mizorowski that like has me hung up a little bit, because Mizorowski, we talked about it. The last extra base hit that he allowed before that double in his final start in May was in mid-April. Like, this guy went a whole month without allowing an extra base hit. Meanwhile, Sanchez goes a month without allowing a run. 45-3 in the strikeout to walk jumps out. And you could say, well, Mizorowski only walked 6. Yeah, but he walked twice as many guys as Sanchez did. These guys are so much fun, man. And I just want to turn this into a macro conversation for the last 2.5 minutes of this segment. You're giving the ball to somebody to start game 1 of the World Series, of the CS, of a wild card series, whatever you want to do. Assuming Skubal looks healthy on the heels of this loose body nanoscope that he had, you'd think you're still handing the ball off to Skubal, probably. Yeah. The other guys that jump out, Yamamoto, Skeens. At what point do you say Sanchez, and at what point do you say Mizorowski at this juncture?
It's kind of the hot hand thing at this point now, which is the interesting thing. And I think it was at a point last year where it was Skeens, Skubal, that's it. Like, those are the 2 answers. Now, I don't care how hot anybody else is. But I think from what we saw even through Miz in the postseason last year, and now this just better version of him here, if Miz is dialed in like this, I might take him over anyone on the planet, because you just simply can't hit him. But I think you could say a similar thing with Sanchez. And I think with Sanchez right now is he's kind of set up in this position where it's similar to what we saw from Skubal, where he's just so dialed. He's executing everything so consistently that I just don't really know how you beat him. Sanchez is like the safest pick, because I know Mizorowski at the end of the day, it's going to be 60% fastball. But I think right now, with the way these guys are throwing, I wouldn't push back at all if you picked one of the two, in Sanchez and Mizorowski. And with the way Mizorowski looks right now, I might just take him.
Yeah, I think I still lean Sanchez, but I totally hear you on the Mizorowski point. Peyton Genis, you hopped in here. We got about a minute left in this segment, but you wanted to add context to the Sanchez-Mizorowski month of May.
Yeah, I think it's simple that we saw 2 of the 10 greatest pitching months ever simultaneously. I mean, Christopher Sanchez is one of 2 pitchers ever to make at least 5 starts in a month, not counting openers, and allow no runs, only joined by Oral Hershiser. And Jacob Mizorowski has the lowest OPS against him in a single month in MLB history, with a minimum of 100 batters faced at 271. The OPS plus against Jacob Mizorowski in May, -23.
Wow. This is like the Miguel Cabrera, Mike Trout MVP race, where Trout wins the MVP in any other year, but he wins the Triple Crown. So we have 2 all-time months that are competing for NL Pitcher of the Month. Fascinating. We pivot the conversation to Player of the Month next.
Craig Carton along with Tyrone Johnson. We got great news for you. CraigCartonShow.com. And Tyrone, what do you get if you go to that amazing website?
Well, right now you can subscribe to our upcoming newsletter. You put in your email address, and then bang, you'll get all the new Craig Carton Show content when it arrives.
Not just that, you also get merch drops, exclusive content, and appearances. So again, one more time, that website is CraigCartonShow.com.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Well, the talk has been about sports betting handle being down or flat, right, because of the threat of prediction markets and the growth of them. But we've seen Kalshi actually kind of plateau for the first time in recent memory. Looking at a graphic right now, we've had the spike for the Super Bowl, and then this is usually when things die down. Yes, there's March Madness, but usually sports betting handle kind of goes down over the course of spring and summer until we get back to football season.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
That's for Abdul Carter. Hey, son, you want to be a leader? Show up to meetings on time. Don't be late to practice. This guy's sitting there trying to tell me that he's got a problem with Jackson Dart going to a Trump rally when he can't even show up to a meeting on time? And he can't show up to practice and he's late? Dude.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio. Only on SportsGrid.
Back here on the Just Baseball Show, we just talked about National League Pitcher of the Month. Now, I want to talk about American League and National League Player of the Month. And this is going to be not as fun a conversation, but a more spread out conversation because, as Peyton Genis just mentioned in the last segment, Sanchez and Mizorowski have put up two of the better months of pitching that we have ever seen in Major League history. The Player of the Month conversation is a little different because there was nobody that ran roughshod over everybody else, especially in the National League. The National League is a very interesting conversation in the month of May. Just Baseball's National League Player of the Month was James Wood of the Washington Nationals. Understandably so. Wood, in 127 plate appearances, had a 176 WRC+, 311 with 6 homers, and a 982 OPS. But there are other guys that deserve some consideration or possible recognition. Michael Busch in Chicago, Andy Pages in LA. There are a bunch. JJ Bleday in Cincinnati. Is that your pick?
Look, I think it's not as sexy. I think JJ Bleday was the best player of the month of May. And you could say, okay, well, he's playing Great American Ballpark, and that's what we got WRC plus for. Because I'm looking at 9 homers. The only guy with more homers in the month was Juan Soto with 10, and Kyle Schwarber with 11, excuse me. But those guys were way, way below when you look at pretty much any other production department. When you look at WRC plus to just account for the ballpark, JJ Bleday had a 179 WRC plus, which was 6 points higher than the next highest, which was Michael Busch at 173, and then James Wood at 172. It's the 9 homers compared to Wood's 6, I think, that stand out to me. But also, you look across the slash line, pretty similar. And with that uptick in homers, you had 100 slugging points higher from Bleday. Obviously, Wood is walking a lot more now all of a sudden and seeing that patience there and just continuing to see him, lean into the power 3 true outcome side of things is great. But I just think JJ Bleday was the best player this month.
Yeah, I look at team performance, to be honest with you, a little bit when I think about Player of the Month. And, Wood jumps out. The other one that jumps out to me is Pages. Andy Pages, I know that he wasn't, to that level in terms of WAR, but Wood was at a 1.4 F4 in the month of May. I think Pages was at 1.3, but Pages had a 25 RBI month. And I know you can dunk on me for the use of RBIs and all that, but Pages was the best player outside of Ohtani for the last 2 weeks, but he was the best player all month long for the LA Dodgers when they snapped it into gear. They're 14-3 in their final 17 games in the month of May. So I do think team performance has to matter here, and Pages certainly has a seat at the table, but I can't fault our staff for going with the Wood choice there.
No,
because what James Wood has done for Washington is not only keep them in the hunt, but make them must watch right now. They're the best offense in baseball in terms of runs scored, and James Wood is the reason why. Abrams has been great. Curtis Meade has been really good.
Yeah.
Keibert Ruiz has been solid, but Wood is the reason why.
Yeah, you got to treat it like a micro MVP, I guess, over the month, right? And that offense without him, I mean, it's kind of funny in in a more depressing version of that. Imagine the Reds offense without Bleday, like we were alluding to. Right. Bleday drove in 26 this past month. What would this offense be without him? But to your point, the Nationals were a national story in terms of how potent and unexpectedly just productive the offense was, and big reason why was James Wood and what he was doing offensively. So I can't get too upset with that pick either. I just think the unexpected nature of what JJ Bleday is doing is really cool. And again, I think this month is just been ridiculous for him.
So the American League had a bunch of possible candidates for AL Player of the Month, and we'll see who actually wins it. But who were the guys that jumped to the forefront of your mind? Because I'll give you a quick 3 off the top of my head. The WAR leader in the American League over the course of the month was Bobby Witt Jr. because Bobby Witt's just a ridiculous defender, and he had a 136 WRC plus. That's great. Cody Bellinger had 5 homers, 23 driven in. He had over 300. He had a 1.6 WAR. Kurtz had a really high WAR as well, but my eyes gravitate towards a couple of different guys. Junior Caminero in Tampa jumped out 6 homers, drove in 15, hit over 300 with a 440 OBP. It was a 172 WRC plus in the month. Two other guys that I want to shout out here, based on what the White Sox did this month, I do want to give some credit to Miguel Vargas, who had 9 homers, 23 driven in, and a 160 WRC plus in the month of May. And then Julio Rodriguez, dude. Julio had 10 homers as Seattle started to get hot. So those were the guys that jumped out to me.
Yeah, if Julio was getting on base a little bit more, and I know that's always kind of the thing there, I think absolutely. And also, it's really hard to judge defense in the span of a month. But, just maybe misplayed a couple balls, maybe got docked unfairly on a couple as well. And so he didn't grade out, quite as elitely as he does generally defensively. So I think that docked him a little bit. But I think when you look at what Kurtz did this month too, man, I mean, 456 OBP. We talk about him being one of the most feared in the game. He just continues to be pitched to as one of the most feared hitters in the game. I look at that and I gravitate towards him hitting 333 in a month, getting on base at a 456 clip. Like, it's been cool to see Kurtz, have these months where 5 homers, which is not nothing to be like upset about, but 5 homers is still, with just that total, he's still able to be as productive as he was because of the walks, because of the improved bat to ball. And the others in a podcast piece shouting out, and I agree, kind of cut from the same cloth here, doesn't need 9 or 10 homers to be at the top of the production on the leaderboards here in the month. Jonathan Aranda, guy hit 350 this month, 354 to be exact, third highest OBP in the month in all of baseball at 444 and a 169 WRC plus. Aranda just continues to absolutely rake for the Rays. And you talk about stories. That's been one of the best teams in baseball. You mentioned Caminero. Maybe those guys are cannibalizing each other a little bit, unfortunately, because some of these other candidates that we've been talking about, like, have been the only guys maybe, or the key guys producing for their teams. But all of a sudden, Aranda and Caminero have become kind of the most fun, duo I think that we could have possibly had here in terms of like just unexpected. I mean, Caminero you expect, but maybe underrated power and production duos.
Yeah, no, I totally hear you on that. Aranda, Caminero, and Yandy Diaz, too. The season that Yandy Diaz has put up have the Tampa Bay Rays firmly in the conversation.
I just realized something. Podcast P pointed it out. I was including June 1st. Aranda actually at 374.
There you go.
Rough June 1st for Jonathan Aranda. 374 with a 464 OBP. That's tops in the league.
Tough night at the ballpark on Monday for Jonathan Aranda there. We've got a couple more minutes in this segment. I do want to take us away from Player of the Month because I want to take us to a different story here, and it might actually be the opposite conversation. We'll start it, and then we'll finish it in the next segment. Carmen Mlodzinski of the Pittsburgh Pirates is coming off of the restricted list early this week. He is going to throw out of the bullpen for the Pittsburgh Pirates in Houston. Carmen Mlodzinski was removed from the starting rotation as Jared Jones made his way back. Understandably so. Jared Jones is one of the better young pitchers in Major League Baseball. He's coming off of an elbow surgery, and he's back. So he's going to be in the starting rotation. This Pirate rotation has been very good. It's not like you're bumping Skeens. It's not like you're bumping Ashcraft. Jones is involved. It's not like you're bumping a young Bubba Chandler. And then you've got a vet as well rounding out the rotation. So the guy to go in this rotation was Carmen Mlodzinski. Instead of taking the push to the bullpen in stride and being a professional and saying, yeah, no, I'll do whatever I need to do to help the team win, it was, I'm going to talk to my agency and figure out best steps. And then the Pirates place him on the restricted list. He comes off. He will throw out of the bullpen. What did you make of the way that he might have reacted to this news that he was being removed from the Pirate rotation?
Well, from what we understand, too, this isn't like the first time. I mean, and it was kind of alluded to by Charrington. Like, it's very important for Carmen Mlodzinski to start. He's made that clear to us in the past, because in the past when they were kind of going between relief and starter roles, I think there was a little bit of a back and forth and an unhappy Carmen Mlodzinski last time. It was maybe considered to move him from the rotation. But the biggest thing is, I can understand maybe frustration of saying I've been more productive than Bubba Chandler. Maybe I deserve to stay in instead of him. You could say that behind closed doors. It's just so easy to be able to just say like, yeah, I'm disappointed, but I want to do what's best for the team. And then, figure out what you want to figure out behind closed doors. I think the whole situation has been handled weird. And then Mlodzinski is supposed to speak with media. I think today as we're recording this, and all of a sudden you get a piece out before he even speaks to the entire media through MLB.com, where it's like Mlodzinski's ready to fill his role. And it feels like his agent probably talked to him and said, don't make this a bigger thing than you need to. And I feel like the Pirates also said the same thing.
Yeah, so we will expand on the Carmen Mlodzinski conversation on the other side of this break, but it is really interesting, and it's not like Mlodzinski was thrown to a low 2 ERA and had to stay in the starting rotation. But the Pirates are putting their best foot forward with Jared Jones in the rotation, and Mlodzinski is in the bullpen. More on that in a moment on the JB Show. Just Baseball Show continues tying a bow on the Carmen Mlodzinski conversation here. Mlodzinski, again, was on the restricted list, but Carmen Mlodzinski in 55 innings so far this year, a 3.70 ERA. He's been good, but the strikeout rate is not overwhelmingly high. The walk rate is just okay at this point. Mlodzinski is a better fit in that bullpen right now, given personnel and probably given Mlodzinski's arsenal, but this screams like change of scenery for him kind of as soon as possible, right? You're looking for lineup reinforcements or bullpen reinforcements, and you move from a starting pitching surplus.
So here's the funny thing. He's your bullpen reinforcement. He is good at leverage. In his career, 4.4 ERA as a starter. As a reliever in his career, 2.63 ERA. And by the way, that reliever sample is 40 more innings. Look, Mlodzinski, like, you can start maybe next year. There could be an opportunity there. The Pirates are trying to make the playoffs. Like the Pirates are in a spot here where you're not going to be able to address the bullpen on June 2nd or June 1st, whatever it may be. And you have a guy that is an experienced reliever that can pitch at leverage, that can piggyback, that can do all these different things. And it's been fantastic in relief. And the Pirates sorely need relief help right now. Like that's where I think it's frustrating for Pirates fans because, look, if it was last year, I could understand a little bit more pushback. But this is a team that clearly invested into winning now, is clearly playing some decent ball and has a chance to make the playoffs. And I know that's what Mlodzinski acknowledged in his, the PR recovery puff piece that went out through MLB.com. But that's the biggest thing to me is like, I get his frustration, but you are in a position here to really help your team in a role that you have been objectively better at for a long time. And if this wasn't the first time, if this was the first time, Mlodzinski said I was emotional right after the game, it is what it is. But again, this has seemingly been a theme with Mlodzinski and the Pirates as it pertains to starting. And when he doesn't start, he gets very upset and pouts. And I think the Pirates were kind of bracing for impact on this one. But this is the best move for the team, I think. That said, if Bubba Chandler continues to struggle, Mlodzinski will have an opportunity to go back into the rotation. Just help them weather the storm right now. And instead of he created a situation here where it's a lot of what local Pittsburgh media is talking about. We're talking about it on the show, and it didn't even need to be a conversation if he could just fake it and say the right things.
A lot of things in a lot of walks of life will work themselves out. And I think this is going to work itself out at some point, but we shall see. I want to talk about the Dodgers in this segment because the Dodgers are starting to Dodger. They are 14-4 in their last 18 games. They're coming off a loss to Arizona on Monday night, but in their last 18, not only are they 10 games over 500 at 14-4, but they are outscoring opponents 107-40. They are annihilating teams, and they have an all-time run differential as we look right now. The Dodgers are in first place. It's not like they're, looking back at anyone right now. It is kind of their league, and everybody's looking up. This is without Edwin Diaz. This is without Snell, and yet that offense is clicking. And we were talking about the Dodgers' offensive spell that they were going through in April. That went away entirely in the month of May, man. And it even crept into the beginning of May, but over the last 2-3 weeks, we are seeing the best version of the Dodger offense. Are we seeing the invincible Dodgers at full force right now?
I think we get flashes of them throughout the season. And then, they may have these little ebbs and flows because, it's more of a marathon for this Dodgers team at the end of the day, and they're focused on the postseason. But I think we're seeing that form of it right now. Because, even when Mookie Betts, he hasn't been great over the last couple of weeks, but he's been good, solid. It's just not being the deficit that he was, and as he was getting his feet back under him. The craziest part too is like Kyle Tucker is still not very good this year. Like he hasn't been bad. He hasn't been good. So you look at this team and it's like, you can see a lot of ways where they can just continue to be better. I think at this point we're waiting for Andy Pages to slow down. I just don't think it's happening, right? Like I thought slow down in the respect of like a 120, 130 WRC plus. He might just be this high 800s OPS guy. And the player that we've seen him now develop into, Max Muncy's going to be who he is and who he has been. The craziest part to me is you have a Will Smith, a Mookie Betts, and a Kyle Tucker all underperforming. And I think the biggest thing that makes this team feel like the invincible Dodgers again is Shohei's back to launching balls. And when Shohei's anchoring that lineup, on top of the fact that he's pitching better than ever, but when he's anchoring that lineup offensively and in that leadoff spot, I just think it makes them so much more impenetrable. And then we're seeing that immediately happen now. And just the difference that creates.
Yeah, Shohei hitting 393 with, I think, 15 RBIs over his last 16 ball games. And Peyton just flashed the graphic. The best run differentials through the end of May. The 1884 Maroons and the 1887 Browns. I don't even know if I could tell you the city that those two found themselves in. But the 2023 Texas Rangers, God, I missed that offense. By the way, Josh Sborz released by Texas. That's really unfortunate. Sborz was the one that got the final out of the 23 World Series. So hat tip on a heck of a career with the Texas Rangers for Josh Sborz. But the 2026 Dodgers sat at a plus 129 run differential through the end of May. And to your point about, Ohtani swinging it and Pages swinging it, like Freeman with his 930 OPS in the month of May as well, they had a lot of guys that were just putting the ball on the ground a lot. But the Dodgers were second in team OPS in all of baseball in the month of May, and they were second in team ERA in all of baseball in the month of May. So, like, when you marry this offensive production with this pitching excellence, and they're getting it from a whole bunch of different guys. Justin Robleski, I understand the regression may hit him at some point, but, like, it feels like he keeps giving it enough of a stiff arm when it does come back to get him with that near complete game 7 earned run performance. Like Robleski again just pushes it away for a couple more starts. But remind you, this is without like a couple of superstars on the mound for them. They're doing it with quote unquote role players. And by the way, River Ryan looks freaking disgusting right now in AAA.
Please call up River Ryan. We're going to put out the top 100 prospect list soon, and I'm going to have to hear all the complaints about having a 28-year-old on the top 100 list. He's on the top 100 list because he is an incredibly solid arm that would be a middle rotation starter on a lot of other rotations around Major League Baseball. So I'm sorry, we got to keep ranking this 28-year-old, but Rocky's throwing the ball better than the bullpen. Like Kyle Hurt, he was a good pitching prospect for them. Recovering from injury, comes back, has immediately been fantastic. Already picked up a save in 18 innings. He's only allowed 2 earned runs. Vesia is back. Tanner Scott is back to his form. And then you mentioned, like, they're going to get Diaz and they're going to get those guys back. Like, this is as good as we've seen them. And really the only hope is that you just can catch them off guard or catch them cold or just get really hot in a series, which is why I love Major League Baseball and baseball in general as a sport, because they're going to be pacing the regular season. I think that's abundantly clear here. And I mean, they're already starting to draw some separation, 5 games from the Padres already. And I think it's going to keep growing.
Padres in a bit of a cold spell. They've dropped 7 of the last 10, but yeah, 38-22, second most wins in all of Major League Baseball, only behind the 40-20 Atlanta Braves. Meanwhile, Tampa and the Yankees each have 36 wins, as do the 36-21 Milwaukee Brewers. So the Dodgers are looking like, along with Atlanta, the best teams in Major League Baseball, and we'll see what the summer months have to show for the LA Dodgers. We tie a bow on the Just Baseball show coming up next.
Hey there, it's your buddy Craig Carton. If you're trying to find out how to get all the great content that me and Tyrone Johnson give you every single day, here's Tyrone to tell you how.
You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and of course, Amazon Music as well. We're at all 4.
That's right. It's the Craig Carton Show podcast every weekday morning live at 11, replayed at noon on YouTube and on SportsGrid throughout the country. Check it out.
They're trading right now currently at 74 wins on the season, which means the Kalshi marketplace goes by 5-win intervals. 75-plus wins for those Houston Astros. That's a 49% contract to the yes, which a $100 investment pays back $205, Greg. I'm not high on this team. Look, again, 75 wins for the Astros is terrible, but this team might not even look the same as where we stand today by the time we get to that deadline.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
For Abdul Carter. Hey, son, you want to be a leader? Show up to meetings on time. Don't be late to practice. This guy's sitting there trying to tell me that he's got a problem with Jackson Dart going to a Trump rally when he can't even show up to a meeting on time? And he can't show up to practice and he's late? Dude.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Just Baseball show concludes. As always, it is presented by BetMGM. Jack, Aram, Peyton, Craig Breslow. You sent this tweet along and you said, please, let's talk about Craig Breslow. Tyler Milliken does a heck of a job for Baseball is Dead. And Tyler Milliken had this report that he put out on Twitter that Craig Breslow may be looking for a translator of sorts or an interpreter of sorts to kind of come off as a bit more human in terms of day-to-day interaction with baseball personnel. And Chad Tracy, the interim manager for the Boston Red Sox, has been a good buffer. I'm not sure if you have the exact tweet up right now, but I will absolutely read it verbatim. If you wouldn't mind just giving us a synopsis while I pull up that tweet, that'd be great.
Yeah, so it's from Tim Healy's piece for the Boston Globe.
Here you go. I'll read it real quick. You got multiple officials told Tim Healy that Craig Breslow might benefit from having an interpreter of sorts, someone with a more traditional baseball, quote unquote, fabric and personal demeanor to convey his message. Some in the organization believe Chad Tracy could fill that role because he's comfortable pushing back.
I just think this would be the first same language interpreter of all time, right? There wouldn't be another one in that form, I would imagine, right?
I don't think so.
So if this is the recommendation, I think the most important thing, what I would probably discern from this is maybe I need to communicate a little bit differently. Like the fact that the solution that is being floated here, like that the man in charge seems so irreparably like just set in his ways that it's like he needs to communicate better as he gets acclimated still to a job that he's still relatively new to. No. We need to find somebody that can be a buffer from his poor communication skills down to everybody else. And what would that translator, what would their role be? Like, usually it would be like, I speak Spanish and I speak English proficiently, so I translate between Spanish and English. What would you be translating between if it's between Breslow and everybody else?
I think
what would the role of that translator or interpreter be?
Yeah, I think it's greater than thou and then normal. Like, I think
Yes.
that's what would be funneled down. And it's just like, if I saw that written about me, if I were in Craig Breslow's shoes, I would take the longest look in the mirror in the history of humanity. I mean, that is such a hard thing to read that you might need an interpreter to change everything you say. This is a Key and Peele sketch. Like, I've watched the Key and Peele sketch before. This is exactly what's happening there. Like, there is an anger translator or there is a analytics translator. It's comical that it has gotten to this point, and it's been reported that this could even be a remote possibility or even a recommendation from other people within the organization.
Yeah, I and this is why I just think this story it's so fascinating to watch. And like I baseball is better when teams like the Cubs and the Red Sox are succeeding, these historic franchises. But at the same time, like it's hard to root for this situation and a guy that's even like the Roman Anthony stuff. Like, and I know that's not totally Breslow, but you have Sam Kennedy coming out and saying nothing's torn, and then Roman Anthony saying it is partially torn and I'm in pain. Even if you're frustrated with the way Roman's handling it, what is going on in the chain of command here, communications wise, that you have the president coming out and saying it's not as bad as the player is saying the injury is. And now the fans are in a spot where, of course, especially in Massachusetts, New England, you're going to have fans saying, oh, Roman Anthony's soft, right? That's, of course, what's going to be a byproduct of that. He might be in brutal pain every time he swings. Who knows? I'm sure Roman Anthony wants to be out there. I just think that is also a crazy wrinkle in this thing. And it just seems communication is just non-existent across the board there. And if you need an interpreter for the boss to talk to other people, then you might just need a new boss.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it's as simple as that, but just insane that, again, we've even gotten to this point, and this has been a nightmarish season for the Boston Red Sox. On the field, off the field, an absolute nightmare here. Got about a minute left, and I guess I just want to revisit this conversation one more time. Mets, Astros, Red Sox. Who's in the worst situation right now?
I mean, the Red Sox still have a lot of talent and controllable talent. The Mets have still good prospects. I'd still say it's the Astros just from an organizational health standpoint, but they can recoup a good bit. Yeah. I'd say, and also the Astros may have a lame duck, exec of their own there in Dana Brown. I just don't know if he's going to be the guy to kind of usher the next era, though the Astros are playing better ball now. I still think the Astros are in the worst spot long-term.
Yeah, the Red Sox are gunning for, I guess, the silver medal at this point. You do not want that gold medal right now. But that'll do it for the Just Baseball show here. For Peyton Genis and Aram Leighton, I'm Jack McMullen. Thank you so much for watching this wherever you may have watched. Again, on YouTube, on SportsGrid, on X. Thank you for listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Got a fun lineup for the show for the remainder of the week. A reminder to rate and review 5 stars if you're with us on one of the podcast engines, as well as subscribing and liking on YouTube. Again, for Peyton, for Aram, I'm Jack. We will talk to you so very soon on the Just Baseball show.